it's actually been a very good 12 months for the India chapter, and I thought to try and explain what's been going on, I'd show it in relation to two conferences. Obviously, there's this one in the middle is the third one, but it's bracketed by two conferences. One that was held at the end of last year, ICSEM, so it was not an SRII conference. SRI were the sponsor of this conference, but it was a great opportunity to get together, I suppose, what you'd call all the stakeholders for this. So we had representatives from industry, academia, government, and essentially we all got together. We had some side events where we got together and said, well, okay, what is it we want to achieve out of SRI India? Who's involved? Who wants to lead? What SIGs? And so on. And out of that meeting, we identified 4 SIGs to go forward, listed here. And for those of you looking and saying, well, that looks incredibly familiar and similar to the global SIGs, that's no accident. The intent was that, look, we want to build on the shoulders of giants, as it were, and build upon the work being done in the global SIGs, but give each of those SIGs an emerging markets perspective or application area. And as you'll see when I talk about them, that's what we've done in 2 of them. Now, 2 of the SIBs, what's happened since is that obviously cloud and mobility has merged, and Sharad was talking a bit about that, and I'll talk a bit more about it as well. So we've got one special interest group going there. The education SIG has moved along, and I'll talk about that. Healthcare has sort of died a death. Now, I suppose if I'd been politically correct, I'd have just sort of forgotten about it and moved it off the slide. But I haven't done that because it's something we really do want to get going. I mean, if there's any SIG, I mean, I suppose of the 2 most important, education and healthcare in India, in an India context, it would be really great to get a healthcare one going. So I think one of the outcomes I'd like out of this is, you know, help and advice or whatever on how we can get one going and what it takes. As ever, it's all about the leadership, right? We didn't get a great leader last time around. I'm hoping that in the coming 12 months, we can really get a leader who's going to drive that forward. Because the issue is not around what are the topics you work on. Sorry?
Should be the coming 2 months.
Coming 2 months, there you go.
Your goal.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your help, Super. Yes. Yeah. All right. And, you know, it's been mentioned a few times, right? What is going to be the SRII conference in December, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit with a slide there, but we're going to keep plugging this. It's really an SRI conference this time, being held at the Infosys Mysore campus and in December 2012, and that in a sense is a major milestone for us. We're trying to focus the work of the special interest group. So yes, actually there's quite a few papers being presented here from the India contingent, but it's another goal to be able to present in Mysore in December. So with that, let me go on and talk about 2 of the SIGs. Basavaraj isn't here today. He's had some health issues, and I think Sharad shown some of his slides. Let me talk about this. This is the slide Basavaraj put together to explain why are we combining the mobile and cloud SIGs. And you know, you can read all this, but to me, I think it comes down to some very pragmatic reasons. The first is, well, if the global SIGs are combining, we in India should, right? We are trying to stay aligned with those global SIGs. And so if they combine them, we're going to combine. But it also comes down to the practical measure of what's the first project going to be. And in a second, I'll show that. And that first project is very much at the intersection of mobile and cloud topics. Now, that doesn't mean that in the future we couldn't have projects which are just mobile with no cloud aspect, or conversely, a cloud project with no mobile aspect. That's going to be fine. But in this first project, there's very much a focus on how those 2 things come together in one practical application. The objectives. So in thinking about the objectives for the India SIG, right, which is building upon the global SIG, very much a focus on applications. We want to be very practical and pragmatic and develop real applications. And then the second one there is really the India context. So what can we do within an emerging markets context to bring benefits to that area? And then the third is about really the development and methodology. So while we're building this application, for an emerging market context, what can we learn about how to develop and deliver mobile cloud applications? What's the ecosystem you need to build around that? Because it's usually not just the technology, but there's a whole ecosystem involved. And there's a lot here of if the final delivery of such application is going to be into an enterprise, how do you handle those issues of the bring your own device to work issues? Those were the overall objectives. And the first project, it's called Value Communication. It's a collaborative project between SRI in India and the Symbiosis Institute of Telecom Management. And to set the context, what it's trying to do is bridge the gap. The context is actually assisting rural farmers. In India, there are many schemes, often many of them either from governments or non-governmental organizations, which provide help and assistance to farmers. These may be monetary help, maybe information help, it may be helping them develop markets. The only problem with most of this is all of those services and assistance is being done and driven out of large cities. And of course, the farmers aren't in those cities, the farmers are out in the rural areas. Other barriers are that, they're not connected to the internet. They're not going home every evening and switching on their web browser on their PC, because they don't have any of that. They have cell phones, fairly primitive cell phones, but they're heavily into texting. So on the one hand, we've got a set of services. The consumers of those services have cell phones, basic cell phones, disconnected from the internet. There's often also a language problem. In India, there's a wide range of languages, and obviously, the educated elite might speak English or Hindi, but that's not what these farmers are speaking. And so this particular application is to build, I think of it as a kind of service aggregator project. It's a project which is going to aggregate all that information about the services that are essentially coming out of central government or other bodies and get it to the farmers where they are, accessing it on their cell phones, using text messaging services, using location-based services there, so they only get presented information about services that are relevant to them, and that will also solve the regional language issues as well. So potentially it's a very interesting project. It's one that's just getting off the ground now. Just so you see the rough roadmap here, the first two boxes on the upper left started off at the conference at the end of last year. So that was all about, defining the SIG, building the membership, defining its objectives, then going on to building the collaborations, which were done. And now we're in that middle box, which is the project is getting off the ground and going. And then the real target is, delivery of that, the results of that, presentations of that in the December conference. Right. So SIG's moving forward, it's got its membership. It's one project, but we're building up, and I think we're pretty pleased with the progress we're making on this particular SIG. And I think another thing is how we can do even better collaboration alignment with the global SIG. That would be great. The next SIG actually is headed up by Rajiv Narvika, who's here somewhere back there. Hi, Rajiv, and on around education. So its purpose is really to say, how can we build knowledge about service science in the education system in India? So how can we bridge some of the difficulties in educating people there? How can we bring the knowledge and information, get it out there? Again, very practically focused. So the first project, very pragmatic, this one. So again, a collaboration between SRI in India, the National Innovation Council in India, which is essentially going to be a funding body for this, and then essentially an education body in Pune. Pune is a city in the western side of India, not far from Mumbai. I'm always wary about when I actually talk about India when there's Indians in the room here who are going to correct me, but what's the population of Pune? It's like a tier 2 kind of city. Still.
We don't know, you can say whatever you want.
Oh, I can make up whatever I like. Okay, it's a big city, right? So this first project is very much focused on that particular city, working with 100 young people and getting them in touch with mentors in the education system, getting them experience with both what is service science, with innovation projects, and very practical attempt at building up some knowledge and activity in Pune. If this is successful, and it's just getting off the ground, we hope to scale it across multiple cities across India and essentially get more and more people involved, take the learnings from Pune, scale it out across the rest of the country. So again, it's a very pragmatic project, really trying to put this in, education principles, knowledge about service science, knowledge about innovation, connect up the people who have that knowledge in India, the mentors, with the young people first of all, in this one city, Pune. So again, the same kind of roadmap here, right? Top left, building the SIG, building the participants, making the academic and in this case governmental connections as well, doing the project and then driving to major presentations of project results at the December conference in Mysore. So again, a second SIG, very solidly off the ground. Well done to Rajiv, and I didn't put slides in here giving all the members. He's not just Rajiv, there's plenty of other people involved as well. But again, a second SIG which is doing some good solid work. Okay, so a slide about the conference, which we want you all to come to. So being held 12th to the 15th of December, it is the SRII conference in collaboration with ICSEM, which was the conference of last year. You'll notice that the focus is on deepening the role of IT and service innovation for emerging markets. So it's SRI, but with an emerging markets context or focus to it. We're going to have various tracks in there. So there's tracks where we have standard academic papers, but there's also going to be industry track. So industry case studies, industry practices, got tutorials. We have got a service innovation challenge going on. There's pictures there. So the top left and the bottom pictures are actually pictures of the Infosys campus. So it's a great time of year to come to India, December, beautiful weather. A beautiful campus, better probably than almost anything you can find around the world. It's also, though, in a great place for those of you who haven't been to India and want to go and visit some of it, because the top right picture, I believe, is the Mysore Palace all lit up. So there's a number of things very close by, and I'm sure we can arrange some trips out to take you to see some of these wonderful sites nearby. So. Yep, there's the URL there, and as soon as he says, there'll be paper handed out. So we really want to encourage a lot of you to come to that conference, and yes, we'll be providing accommodation and so on the campus there. So it would be a great opportunity to come out and contribute to this conference. And so just finally, I thought I'd wrap up in what are my goals as we go forward to the second year of SRI India. We've got to consolidate and build upon these existing SIGs. Yes, we've got 2 of them are really solidly going, very pleased with their progress, but we need to build upon that. I think we need to establish better connections with the global SIGs. The more we can do to really build on the shoulders of these new giants here in Silicon Valley, the better. We've got to make that Mysore conference a success, and so we want as many of you to come as possible. We want it to be a really international conference. And then finally, build this healthcare SIG. So people who've got some help and advice on that would be appreciated. Okay, any questions on the India chapter before we hand over to Thailand?
Thank you,
All right, okay.